Well, Chambo Africa. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are tuning in tonight. Mwa wombeni, mwa pepeni mukwai, mwa pempela bwanji, konse kumwe mkutimva. Usiku wa bwino. We have come tonight and it's going to be a great evening. Mwaiseni. PeP, wherever you are, we want to say thank you for tuning in tonight. This is your friend and brother, Dr. E.J. Nkoma, coming to you live from Komboni. Panapa program lelo. We are so excited that we are privileged to host the president who you may need to know, and very soon you will get to know who I'm talking about, because Zambia decides in the next few days. Just imagine, we have only exactly by today 150 days remaining before Zambia goes to the polls, goes to the ballot. There are so many people and so many leaders that have emerged and they have been lining up. There has been a call. Opposition, not there has been all kinds of talks today. And tonight, I am privileged to bring to us no other than the president of Patriots for Economic Progress, PeP. This is no other than President Sean Enoch Tembo. President Sean Tembo, good evening.
Good evening to you, sir, and thank you for your graciousness to invite me to this important program, podcast of yours. I'm indeed very, very indebted and thankful for your invitation. Thank you so much. And of course, a very warm good evening to all the listeners and viewers out there. I hope we can have a fruitful chat this evening. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've been looking forward to have this little chat with you. You know, the challenge was I was giving you a call on a number that I thought it was the number for your direct call, but I realized it was for the office. It reminded me that time in December when you were trying to call President Hakainde Hichilema and the phones were not going through. So I was saying, does Sean Tembo also play the same semantics? You know, I'm trying to call him and
well, the scenarios are a little bit different. Of course, I'm sure you picked the number you were trying to call in from the blogs, like the number that forwards messages and things like that. So that's the number for the secretariat. But in my case, in December, when we were trying to follow up those payments for the farmers, which were long overdue, I was calling the president on his personal line. Actually, I've got 2 of his lines, and I think we need to give it to him that he hasn't changed his lines despite ascending to the presidency. So I was calling him on the lines that I used to talk to him on when we were still in the opposition. So I was confident about the lines I was calling him on, while you were not very confident about the line you were calling on. That's a different thing.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, it's how has been your day? I mean, I know that you have been very busy. Being a Sunday, are you also visiting churches and trying to talk to the citizens on Sundays? How was your Sunday today?
No, the Sunday is doing well, productive as usual. We had a church engagement just to meet the people, meet the masses. So we had a church engagement in Kaunda Square, Stage 1 of Lusaka, and it was very fruitful. The response and the demeanor and the attitude of the people towards us is extremely positive. You can see the connection literally that these people want us to be in the driving seat come August of this year. And we are equal to the task. We are ready physically, psychologically, and everything else.
Wow, that's awesome to hear. That's awesome to hear. Zambia, wherever you are watching us from today and tonight, I am hosting no other than President Sean Enoch Tembo, popularly known as Sean Tembo. As most of you may know him, he's the president of PeP. And Sean Tembo is going to be one of the people that will speak to us tonight. And just after a few discussions, as we are having the time to communicate, I will be opening the lines and you will be allowed to give us a call on WhatsApp, or you can send us a voice message if you want to speak to Sean Tembo. There are a number of issues that we will be looking at today, and I want you to be part of the engagements tonight as we are hosting President Sean Tembo. Now, Tembo, sepano pa platform, tulabirirako bantu bamu makomboni, tulabirirako bantu bakwa Kanyama, bantu bakwa Mandevu, abantu bakutwapya, bantu bakwa Linda, and all that. Sometimes that's why tukondoita I program yazo kuti komboni kumayadi. As it is called Zambia Decides. Tuleta mwe bantu bamu mayadi tumileta mkomboni. We would want the people that vote are those that really, most of the people vote in. I'm sure you know that, because they are good at intellectualizing everything. But our people in Kanyama, they may want to know, who is Sean Tembo? I will draw on that. I know you have answered this question several times. So you can just, in a minute or so, the Zambians, the ordinary Zambians, vantu vakwachama, ofuna kumva kuti nanga uyu Tembo ni Tembo wakuni, vantu vakasenengwa. They want to know kuti uyu ni Tembo ofuma pamuzi pabani uyu Tembo. Nabakasama baleti ngaba ba Tembo nabo bafuma kwisa trefoku beshiba. Trefoku beshiba kwa tuishi befishi balefoku tuchitira. Nabena bakusolowesi nabo baletira we want to know, who is this gentleman? So in a nutshell, I would want you to summarize, who is Sean Tembo?
Indeed. Well, I was born on the 30th of March. I'll use English. Not that tukwanisha lini kulavira chakwasu tulavira ngako soti. Nechivemba chonse tulalanda tuli vavemba nkonko in terms of the language. But we are cognizant of the fact.
in any way that you can, please. Go
Yes,
ahead.
we are cognizant of the fact that there will be a number of other viewers who may neither understand Nyanja nor Bemba. So I'll use English.
Go ahead.
So I was born on the 30th of March, 1980, which makes me, well, I'm clocking 46 years old on the 30th of this month. And I was born to a Mr. Gideon Tembo and Vida Banda. We were 9 of us. My father, by the time I was born, my father was retired. So it's just a story that I hear that he used to work in the mine in Chingora under the CCM. But he had consequently, or rather subsequently, retired. And then he went to settle at a farm, Msandire farm, in Chief Munukwa of Eastern Province, Chipata District. But in terms of the village where we officially come from, it's Jabu village of Chief Kapatamoyo of the same Chipata district. That is where my father comes from. My mother comes from Mnoro village of the same Chief Kapatamoyo of Chipata district. My mother is still alive. I lost my father when I was about 9 years old. I guess it was the stress of, living the town life where they were being given everything, milk, cocoa, and those chimpompwa, and then having to go and settle at a farm and trying to start things from scratch. I guess I couldn't adjust to that environment. But anyway, I lost my father when I was 9 years old. That's in 1989. And the way it was way back in the days, I guess it's still the case today. When a man dies, then the wife then starts looking for people to keep her children, and then she distributes them around. By the time that my father died, we were 9 of us in the family, and I was a fifth born. So I happened to be distributed to one of my uncles who was staying in Mtendere compound in Lusaka here. So I came. By the time I was coming, I was doing my grade 4. So I came to live with my uncle in Mtendere B section there, near Mahatma Gandhi. And then I started my grade 4 at Tukuko Primary School in the C section of Mtendere. And then I stayed with him. He used to work for Superoff. He was a salesman stroke driver. So he used to distribute. He used to distribute that nice, tasty bread. You remember those days? There were only 2 producers of breads. There was Superoff and Carousel, and Superoff used to produce the tasty bread. Yeah. So yeah, I then went all the way to grade 7 at Tukuko. Then I passed my grade 7. And then went to Kablonga Boys, where I did my grade 8 and 9. And from there, I passed again. I went to Livingstone, a boarding school, Hillcrest. I was there in grade 10 up to grade 12. From there, I did quite well again. And then I went to Copperbelt University. So I completed my grade 12 in 1997. And then there's that 1 year that we usually used to waste in society. Yeah, that was 98 for me. And then 99, I started my first year at CBU. So initially, I'd always dreamt to be an engineer, electrical engineer specifically. But then the time that I completed school was the time that UNZA was closed for a prolonged period of time. I think it was more than 8 months. And CBU did not really offer electrical engineering at that time. They offered a hybrid course called electrical electronics. And CBU was known for commercial courses, and business courses, and not engineering courses. So the perception among my colleagues was that if you really want to pursue a serious engineering career, you need to do it from UNZA and not CBU. So yeah, Subsequent to that, I realized, I told myself to say, I can't keep waiting for UNZA to open. I don't know when it will open. And the thing of being at home, you start drinking beer and
Ati mungape bene mavumo.
So sometimes you need to gauge yourself and say, this capacity, if I continue with it, I think it will not lead me anywhere positive. Yeah, so let me just satisfy here and pursue an alternative path, even if it's not really my ultimate path. So I decided to go and pursue accountancy at CBO. So I was admitted, and then I was there. I had a really good time there. The 4 years I was there, until I completed my school. In 2002, I had a couple of job offers. I picked one of the audit firms, PricewaterhouseCoopers. I went to work for them. They sponsored me to do SCCA at Zambia Center for Accountancy Studies, ZICAS. By then, they had just established ZICAS. Yes, and I did my SCCA in a record time. And then after I completed my SCCA, I guess I was a little bit selfish. So I figured, well, I think at this point, I don't really need to work for these guys. I can set up my own firm. So I started my own firm. That was in 2004 when I was about 24 years old. Called Innosis Associates. So it's an audit firm. So I've been running that firm all the way up to today. So which makes us about 22 years old. In between, we've had our highs and lows. At some point, we expanded quite extensively. We opened an office in Botswana. We also opened an office in Johannesburg, South Africa. My office was in Kensington there. And then, around 2016, I figured I needed to come back home for two primary reasons. Number one, the business environment was shrinking in the diaspora countries because they were emphasizing on citizen-owned, like 100% citizen-owned, for you to do business with parastatals and councils and the government. So initially it was like, majority citizen-owned. So I found a few people who I could work with and made them shareholders in the companies just to allow us to do business. And then along the way, they insisted on, 100% citizen-owned. So then it stopped making sense. So I figured, okay, fine. I guess this is the time to get back home. So I packed my bags and came back home. So that's the number one reason. Number two, it was because I figured I needed to pursue a political career, and I could not pursue it by correspondence. I needed to be around the country. So around 2016, I came to Zambia 100%. But in between, I still maintained my Zambian office. And I was in Zambia at least every month, at least 1 week of every month. Throughout the 15 years or so that I was operating the other, offices out of the country, I was every month. So yeah, I was up to date with what was happening in every city. And then I kind of semi-retired, and I still ran the businesses that I was running, but on a more scaled down level, as opposed to the way I was doing it then. You hire more people and you play a more supervisory role as opposed to a more hands-on role. So that's basically my background. Family-wise, I am happily married to my wife. She's a medical doctor. And between us, we have 5 children, 4 girls and 1 boy.
Congratulations.
Sorry?
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you for that. Yeah. So basically, that's the long and short of it. without boring
Wow.
people too much.
Yes. No, thank you so very much, President Sean Tembo, for that elaborate history about who you are, because people need to know. People today, they just rising up and say, okay, I will be president, I will be president, I will be president. You have shared with us your background, you've shared with us your historical upbringing, and which school you went to, what you have done. You have quite achieved quite a lot. I mean, at your age, I think you have achieved quite a lot. And congratulations to you
Thank
and
you.
your
Thank you.
family. Yeah. President Sean Tembo, yes, you came onto the political scene in 2010, particularly full time in the nation of Zambia. We want to know, and the Zambians want really to know, which political party did you just come up and said, okay, boom, I'm starting my own political party? And why did you not join other political parties, if so? We want to hear from that.
Yeah, so that's a very good question, and thank you for it. So when I decided to join politics, that was sometime in actually the interest developed around 2015. I looked around in terms of which political party I could join. So the trending political parties at that time were, of course, the Patriotic Front, which was a ruling party. And then we had the main opposition, UPND. And then we had NAREP and Chipimo, Eras Chipimo.
Eras Chipimo, yes.
Yes, and then we had the FDD under Nawakwi and the other smaller parties. So when I looked at each and every party, I at the time I was not satisfied with what they were offering in terms of their manifesto and their demonstration. For me, Doc, there are two primary issues that I was extremely concerned about, which I wanted to be addressed in terms of any of the political parties that I could join at the time. Number one, I wanted to be assured that this political party is premised on competence and not patronage.
Okay.
And that people within the party rise to various levels and positions on the basis of competence and not on the basis of patronage. Why I had that particular requirement in the back of my mind is because any organization that is run on the basis of patronage cannot really succeed, in my view. For an organization to succeed, it has to run on the basis of competence, meaning that for someone to be elevated or promoted to a particular position, the head of the organization doesn't necessarily need to like that person. The person just needs to be able to do their job. As simple as that. If the head of the organization is elevating people on the basis of how much he or she likes them, then that's patronage. And that particular organization is doomed to fail. So I was looking at that, competence-based system as a number one requirement. And when I looked across all political parties, I couldn't see that. Number two, which was to me uncompromisable, it was like a very important and strict requirement for me to join any existing political party, was to place the interests of the masses first. The word masses is usually abused. When you talk about the masses, you're talking about the millions of Zambians who are literally voting for themselves. They cannot advance their own interests because the majority of them are not educated, they don't have a forum, they live in the shanty compounds, or they live in the villages. So they don't have a voice. You understand? So in terms of your policies as a party, are you putting the interests of these people who are not able to speak for themselves first, even if they are not able to speak for themselves? If the answer is no, and you are only factoring in the interests of the elite, those who are able to speak fluent English, those who are able to have a platform to challenge you and condemn you, those are the minority, and those are the ones you want to please in your, manifesto. Then it means you are leaving out the critical voices who, in my view, need to be factored in. Because I might not have mentioned to you, Doc, for me, I come from a very underprivileged background. My parents were not rich people, my relatives were not rich people, and I literally had to hustle through to make anything out of myself. And I know the challenges that people face. When I say the challenges, I mean the challenges that people in urban areas, in the compounds face, as well as people in the rural areas, the villages face, because I've lived both of those lives. And if anyone is going to come forward and say, I want to run the affairs of this country, Zambia, for me to support such a person, I need to be convinced that they are putting the interests of these vulnerable masses, who are the majority, first. So I wasn't satisfied in terms of any of the existing political parties at the time. So then I came to the conclusion to say, given the circumstances at hand, I may have to round up, like-minded colleagues and other stakeholders and consider starting a new movement, which would, number one, be merit-based, and number two, would put the interests of the masses first. And that is how we ended up registering and starting the Patriots for Economic Progress. So in terms of our fundamental ideals, we are a merit-based political party. And even when we form government, I don't want to say if, I want to say when, because I know it's just a matter of time. We may not form government this year, but mark my words, we shall form government one day. So when we form government, our government shall be a merit-based government. I would not really need to like you personally, Doc, for me to appoint you to a particular position. I'll just need to be convinced that you are qualified for the job, you are adequately experienced for the job, and that you can do the job. Then I'll appoint you to a particular position and say, Doc needs to be in that position. So it shall be a merit-based government. And not only that, it shall also factor in and prioritize the interests of the majority masses. You know, when we talk about the masses, we are talking about the vulnerable in urban areas, the shanty compounds of Lusaka and other towns, as well as the majority, villagers in the rural areas of Zambia. Those are vulnerable, those are in the majority. Their interests are usually ignored at the expense of the elite few. And my government will ensure that their interests are prioritized.
Wonderful. President Sean Tembo, I like the way you are elaborating things. And Zambians, wherever you are watching us from, those that are in diaspora as well, those of you that are in Zambia, they will be very soon. We will open the phone line and we will ask you to give us phone calls if you want to speak to President Sean Tembo. Now, President Sean Tembo, I know that whilst President Hakainde Hichilema was in opposition, you crossed paths together. Have you ever worked together with President Hakainde Hichilema before? I know there is a rider to that question. There's a reason why I'm asking this question. Have you ever worked with President HH before?
Yes. If you remember, just after President Hakainde Hichilema was released from that incarceration at Mkoveko, a number of opposition political parties headed by the UPND came up with the concept of what was then called the Opposition Alliance. So I
Yes.
was a member of the Opposition Alliance, my party was a member, and I was also the spokesperson of that Opposition Alliance. And not only the spokesperson, but I was also the treasurer of that Opposition Alliance. So we worked together with President Hakainde Hichilema for more than 2 years, from about 2017, in fact, about 3 years, from about 2017 to about 2020.
Yeah.
Our point of departure between myself and President Hakainde Hichilema was when, towards the 2021 elections, he changed the format of our collaboration as opposition alliance. Or let me not say he changed. Let me say he wanted to change, because by the time it was changed, I had already exited the opposition alliance because I wasn't happy with that proposed change. So we signed, when we formed the opposition alliance, we signed what we called a memorandum of understanding among all the member political parties. And there were a number of them. They included the UPND, ourselves as PeP, the NDC headed by Honorable Chimbagambwida at that time, NAREP headed by Honorable Elias Chipimo at that time, and so on and so forth. So on the 9th of May 2017, we signed a memorandum of understanding at Pamozi Hotel. And I still have a copy of that agreement. So that memorandum of understanding basically regulated how we were going to operate as opposition alliance. And that memorandum of understanding was very clear to say the structure of this alliance, the way it will operate, the way we'll go into the 2021 election is that we are going to allocate seats, parliamentary and local government seats, to each member political party, depending on their areas where they are strong. So each political party will field in candidates. And then in terms of the presidential candidate, we are going to base it on consensus based on who is the most popular. So to us, we saw that format as something that was progressive, because it would mean that, of course, I may not have stood as a presidential candidate. I would have probably backed Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, because, of course, he was the most popular presidential candidate. But it would have meant that my political party would have been able to field candidates, local government and parliamentary candidates in the areas where we were strong. And we would have walked away with some parliamentary seats. And to me, that was a reasonable compromise, where you forfeit your presidential ambitions, but then in the interest of growing your party in terms of representation in parliament, as well as representation at local government level. So it was a reasonable compromise. But then towards the elections, my good friend, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, decided to change the goalposts. He said, no, anyone who wants to field in candidates, you can bring your candidates, but we'll field in those candidates under the UPND. So that is like dissolving your political party and joining the UPND. And for us, we were willing and able to work with the UPND, but we were not willing and able to dissolve our political party and join the UPND. Because we had assessed, remember, we had assessed all these political parties at the very beginning, and we felt that none of them really satisfied what we believed was needed in a political party to deliver to the expectations of the Zambian people. And that is the primary reason why we formed the Patriots for Economic Progress. So it's like, if we did that, it's like we took 2 steps forward and 3 steps backwards. So we said, I said, my brother, look, we had a good time together, but this proposition you are putting on the table, we are not happy with it. We are going to leave you at this point. And when we left the opposition alliance, it's not like we started attacking them or we went and joined the ruling PF. No, no, no. we still remained a very sober and objective opposition political party. The only difference was that we were independent and not affiliated to either the so-called opposition alliance led by the UPND or the ruling Patriotic Front. So that is basically the background of our interaction with President Hakainde Hichilema while he was in opposition.
President Sean Tembo, I've got this question for you. I recall very well, I think it was just the day that we were coming back from Heroes Stadium, and we were driving in the car coming from the swearing in of President HH that time. I was part of the people that was in the VVIP delegation that time, and we are driving coming back from the swearing in, and I heard you on one of the commentaries that you made. I was trying to look for it, but because it was on a radio, I couldn't find it right here. You made a very serious statement. And in that statement, you said, this government will be, you said something like, this government will be a failed project. And I was bamboozled because the man had just literally been sworn in after election for a few days. What made you to make that kind of a statement? The reason why I'm bringing this kind of a question to you, it's because it seems to me you were one of the first people to oppose President Hakainde Hichilema when he just started his job, when the gentleman was basically new on his job. And Sean Tembo just went straight on the axe and says, "Atu you are Firwa." So, what made you echo such kind of statements?
Well, it was basically two factors. The first factor was, of course, based on my previous experience, having worked with Mr. Hakainde Hichilema for some period of time, under the umbrella of the opposition alliance. So that was a contributing factor. But the main factor was basically the way the inauguration was conducted. Okay? The way the inauguration was conducted. When you look at Mr. Hakainde Hichilema and the 2021 election, you realize that he had overwhelming support from across the entire country. When you look at it from the level, yes, when you look at it from the level of parliamentary seats, you may not fully comprehend the level of support he had. But when you drill it down and look at it from the level of local government support in terms of councillors and the areas where he won councillors and in cases where he lost, the margin with which he lost, you then realize that he had overwhelming support from across the country. Okay, that is it. And when you compare the results of Mr. Hakainde Hichilema's victory in 2021 with even the MMD victory in 1991, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema's victory was more sweeping than the FTJ victory in 1991. Okay, so he had the most overwhelming win in any presidential election in the history of Zambia. That's a fact, well documented, no question, no debate about it. Now, given that background, when you look at the way he structured his inauguration, because as a president-elect, you are in charge, you dictate the structure of your inauguration. So you look at the way he structured his inauguration, and you realize that his inauguration was designed to just promote his particular tribe and his particular province. All the people who sang at that inauguration.
Why do you say so? Why do you say so?
All the people, all the people performed in terms of songs and dance at that inauguration were people from his province only. Were people from his province only. So so after that demonstration, I was then shocked to say, but this guy, he has won overwhelmingly, supported by all corners of the country, and yet um, the occasion or opportunity he had to showcase who he is going to be as president, he has used that opportunity to just promote his tribe and his province. So I realized that we are going to have a very big problem just there and then. Because if he was a wise person, he would have made sure that that inauguration ceremony represented the diversity of Zambia and Zambia's culture, so that it could set the tone. It could set the tone of a one Zambia, one nation presidency from inception. So from that particular demonstration, I realized to say we are going to have a big problem here. This is someone who, despite having been voted into office by the entire nation overwhelmingly, like never seen in the history of this country, he still has the mindset of an opposition leader, believing that he is not liked by other areas of the country. And as a president, the moment you have that mindset, then it's very difficult for you to succeed. And we've seen him actually echoing those sentiments to say he's hated. He's hated by other regions. So the moment you start dividing the country and saying that group in that corner hate me, that group in that corner love me, this group here hate me, then you as a president, you've lost it. If you're going to succeed as a president, you need to look at all the people that you are over which you are governing as Zambians. Don't open their mouths and try to see the color of their tongue and say, this one is a Bemba, this one is a Rosie, this one is a Tonga, this one is a Ngoni. Then you've lost the plot as a president, because you'll be overwhelmed by irrelevant issues to do with regions and tribes and this and that, as opposed to the bigger issues which you are supposed to focus on in terms of overall national development. As a president, you have a duty and obligation to deliver national development to all corners of the country, regardless of whether those people voted for you, regardless of whether you think those people like you, regardless of whether you think those people hate you. You have a duty and obligation to deliver development to each and every corner of the country if you are going to succeed. So I saw from the onset that my brother, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, lacked that aspect. And I knew that from the onset that this will be a failed presidency. And for sure, it has proved to be a failed presidency.
President Sean Tembo is live with us right here on this platform. We want to say thank you to those of you that are watching us on Smart Eagles, those of you that are watching us on Grindstone TV, those of you that are watching us on Revelation TV, those of you that are watching us on Kombon Kumayadi, those of you that are watching us on different platforms right now. I'm hosting the president of Patriots for Economic Progress. This is no other than Sean Tembo. I want us to ask him these questions right now. There's a number on the screen that you can now participate in the phoning in program. The number is 09560431617. 09560431617. You can send us, you can call on WhatsApp and speak to President Sean Tembo. Right now, as we are discussing, President Sean Tembo, 5 years, we are remaining with 150 days. Padilelo, Myron Squashal 149. to go through the elections. I know that you are one of those people that came emphatically to oppose President HH from the word go, and you say this is going to be a failed project. But President Hakainde Hichilema has created jobs for teachers. President Hakainde Hichilema has created job for the police, job for the nurses, the civil servants, the young people who were crying for jobs, the teachers. Today they are saying, President Hakainde Hichilema, kwenyu. They are saying, jobs kwenyu. President Hakainde Hichilema has also brought what is known as free education. And they say, President Hakainde Hichilema, free education kwenyu. He has now also opened the meal allowances for university students in all our public universities. President Hakainde Hichilema has also brought meals in schools. President Sean Tembo, are you still maintaining your stance to say President HH has failed? Despite that, I even forgot, he has increased the CDF. Much more, I received a call the other day, and they said, even the people in the villages, the MPs were very happy, including the opposition MPs, when they brought in delimitation. They said, vima constituents vezevikulungako, so let's cut them. So they have brought delimitation in to increase the number of constituencies in parliament. And they are saying all that is success to President Hakainde Hichilema. What do you say about the 5 years of President HH? I want you to be honest as PEP, as a presidential candidate, as an objective citizen. We want to hear from you. What do you say in a nutshell, the 5 years of President HH? How would you rate him from 1 to 10? If we have to put it 1 to 10, we have only remained with 150 days to go. How would you rate President HH?
Well, if I start with the issue of rating him, I guess I would rate him a 3 out of 10. But then I'll proceed to explain.
Go ahead, please.
So, wait. Sorry?
Go ahead, please. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Yeah. So, when you look at the UPND, you realize that UPND is a political party that came into office largely through propaganda, you know. The Patriotic, when they were in office, messed up in a number of areas. The issues of corruption, the issues of cadres, the issues of this, the issues of that. But then the UPND made a very good job of multiplying whatever little bad thing that the PF did by, 10 times through propaganda. They ran a very effective propaganda machinery, So that's how they ascended to power primarily. Of course, there are other smaller factors that contributed, but that's a primary factor that contributed to them coming into office, propaganda. Now, fast forward to them being in office. In the back of their minds, from day one, they've always believed that they can remain in office through propaganda, okay? Simply because they ascended to office through propaganda. All right. So now, I'm sure you challenge me to say, can you cite some examples of that alleged propaganda?
Yes.
I'll talk about something that you have just spoken about, the issue of CDF. When you look at CDF, CDF is essentially a propaganda tool. It is a scam. Why am I saying that CDF is a scam? Because when you look at CDF, it's well and good for you to tell me that, the UPND government increased CDF from about 3 million to about 30 million, But you are not mentioning the things that CDF was required to cover when it was actually 1.6 million.
1.6 million.
Yes, you are not mentioning the things that CDF was covering when it was 1.6, as opposed to what CDF is required to cover when it's 30 million. All right. So when CDF was 1.6, it was meant to cover community projects, just small community projects, nothing significant. All right. Maybe a walkway or footpath is overgrown with grass. They cut it up, open it up within the community. Just small community projects. But when UPND increased the CDF to 30 million, what they did is they took the budget from Ministry of Education in terms of funding children who are in boarding under, government sponsorship in boarding schools. So Ministry of Education budget is covered in CDF. They also took the budget for running clinics in the constituency. So the power, the what, all the administrative costs, they put them into CDF. That budget was previously under Ministry of Health. And then they also took the budget for running police stations, all the operations of a police station, vehicles for police stations and ABCD, they put it under CDF. All right. So they took budgets from Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, and Ministry of Home Affairs, and took that budget, lifted it from the central budget. Those budgets would have their own lines in the national budget. They took that and put it under CDF. So now that 30 million, when it is released, it is not used to sort out petty projects within the community, no. It has to cover the Ministry of Health budget, Ministry of Education budget, and Ministry of Home Affairs budget. When you see those vehicles, the Land Cruisers, the police Land Cruisers,
Mr. Tembo, we've got a caller. Let's pick the call and let's hear what the caller has to say. Hello, caller. Can you tell us? Oh, the caller is gone. I think the caller could not connect. You can try to call again. There is a number on the screen as you wishes to speak to President Sean Tembo. Please feel free to give us a call again and on 095 617. You can call via WhatsApp and make sure that you have data. If you don't have data, please, you can send a voice note and we will play your voice note and President Sean Tembo will listen and respond to the voice note. You can go ahead and send the voice note as President Tembo is responding. President Tembo, go ahead and explain. You are talking about how the CDF was working. Let's pick another call. We've got another caller that has come in. Hello, caller. Kindly introduce yourself and let us know where you are calling us from. We've got President Sean Tembo on the program tonight. Go ahead, please.
Yes, good evening. My name is Kapale Daka. And Mr. Tembo, I want to first of all start out by wishing you a happy birthday on the 30th of this month. We're wishing you very good health. Yes. Secondly, I also want to congratulate you because I took the time to look at your alternative budgets. Actually, it's been very consistent. Actually, you've been doing it during Patriotic Front and then UPND. So it's not like you're targeting an individual. You're actually trying to do the work to help the country. So actually, I want to congratulate you on that one as well.
Thank you.
However, I have a few questions and maybe a few suggestions, right? So when I read the alternative budgets, I noticed a theme. They kind of seem similar to some of the things that Mr. Akainde has been talking about. Yours seem to talk about just debt reduction, like just reducing the debt completely. His talks about restructuring, right? So it's more like he's talking about just reducing. You want to get rid of the debt completely. Now, my concern is if we talk about fiscal discipline, right? We must remember that the people are borrowing this money. They're just not borrowing out of like fanfare, right? They are borrowing because I think there was a need. And then in Zambia, when we borrow, we don't borrow for production yet. We borrow for food consumption, right? So now when you talk about reducing the debt like completely, right? How are you going to put the food on the table like immediately?
All right.
That's the first question.
Yes.
Second question. You also mentioned of us moving from dependence on mining and then moving to agriculture, right? While that is recommendable, why can we do both? Why can't we continue like developing our mining, right, apparatus, and at the same time expanding on our agriculture? Those are my two questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for that call. Thank you so very much for that call. President Tembo will surely respond to that. I hope President Sean Tembo, you were able to pick the questions loud and clear on your side. Yes, you were explaining on something. If you feel you have to respond immediately to that question, you can go ahead.
Okay, so Doc, just for us to avoid having a haphazard conversation in which we end up confusing the viewers, I think it's important that I should conclude my point, and then the chorus can come in, and then I can answer the chorus.
Absolutely.
Because if I'm left hanging on the point I'm trying to conclude on, and then the caller asks questions, and then I jump into answering the caller, it will end up being a very haphazard conversation, and we end up confusing the viewers. Yeah, so I've noted the two very important questions asked by the caller. So if you give me 2 minutes to wrap up on my point on CDF, and then I'll answer both of the questions, and then we can take more questions.
That's exactly. Go for it. Go for it.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so I was explaining on CDF to say, CDF on paper may look like it was increased from about 1.6 to about 30 million, but in reality, it was not. It was actually the allocation to the various needs were actually reduced. Okay? Because when you look at the budget, if you go for a line budget for operations under Ministry of Health, you'll find that it was quite significant. It was, for the whole country, it was about 1.5 billion on average. And then you look at the budget for Ministry of Education, operations of schools, again, quite significant, more than 2 billion. Again, when you look at the budget for Home Affairs, operations of police stations and so on, quite significant per annum. You're talking about more than 1.5. So in total, you're talking about a budget of about 5 billion, and then you divide it by 156 constituencies, 5 billion divided by 156. I'm not that good at mathematics anymore, but it would roughly come to about 40 something, 40 something million. And then you'll find that there was initially an allocation that was made for, and that we are talking about those figures as being the best figures before the UPND came into office, okay? Not adjusted for inflation or any other factor. And then we're talking about the amount that was initially given. So you realize that the allocation was actually lower under CDF because they ramped up so many other departments under CDF compared to the amount which was there before, which was merely just for community petty projects. I'll give you another more clear example. When you look at the CDF vehicles that were bought just when UPND came for the police in 2023, they bought a vehicle per constituency. I'm sure you see those CDF Land Cruisers.
Absolutely.
They bought one vehicle per constituency. However, the last time that the police bought vehicles for all the police stations was in 2011, just before the general election, when the government was still under RB. And RB bought a Land Cruiser for each and every police station. Now let's compare the vehicles that were bought by RB in 2011 to the vehicles that were bought by the UPND under CDF, the Land Cruisers in 2022, 2023. So when you look at a constituency like Lusaka Central, they were given one vehicle. And then you look at the police stations which are there under Lusaka Central. You have Central Police, okay? You have Ibex Police Station, that is under Lusaka Central. You have Woodlands Police Station, that is under Lusaka Central. So you've got the 3 police stations given one vehicle under CDF, whereas the RB in 2011 gave a vehicle to each station. In other words, there were 3 vehicles. They were in the constituency. Okay, let's also look at another constituency. Let's look at Munari constituency. Munari constituency has the Charleston Police Station. Munari constituency also has the Simon Mansa Kapwepwe Police Station, and the Munari constituency also has the Le Soleil Police Station, the one near Ngombe there, along Zambezi Road. So you are talking about 3 police stations being given one CDF police vehicle under a UPND, okay? Compared to the way RB was distributing Land Cruisers when the budget was not under CDF, but it was actually under Ministry of Home Affairs. Each of those police stations got a Land Cruiser, a police Land Cruiser. So you realize that the resources under the so-called CDF, they may look like they were increased, but in reality, they were reduced. So that is why I was telling you to say this CDF thing is part of the propaganda arrangement by the UPND, because they came into office using propaganda, and they think they can continue to be in office using propaganda by confusing citizens on simple things. If no one explains to you, even you, I'm sure, you would have said, CDF Land Cruisers, they are good than the Land Cruisers that RB gave to each police station. But in reality, they are not. They are not. And the examples are endless. Now, if you allow me, I'll proceed to the questions that my brother asked. And I want to thank him for his good wishes for my birthday. His first question was to say, what we're advocating for in our alternative budgets is similar to what President President Hakainde is advocating for in terms of debt restructuring. First of all, I want to mention that the concept of debt restructuring is a scam. Just like CDF. Okay. Why am I saying it's a scam? Because when you talk about debt restructuring, when you talk about debt restructuring, you are essentially saying, no, we are overburdened by too much borrowing. So we want to reach out to our creditors and negotiate the terms of this credit. Of course, it's not a single credit agreement. It will be various credit agreements for various amounts. You understand? So we want to negotiate them so that they can be more favorable to us. And when you talk about negotiating in terms of debt restructuring, you are talking about engaging your creditors to negotiate either the interest rate. You go to them and say, boss, this interest rate you gave us is on the high side. We can't sustain it. We'll be in a debt trap. So can we negotiate that you give us a more viable rate? Instead of the 13%, can we settle at 10% so that it's more viable? And then you negotiate, and then maybe you settle at 10.5%. So you're trying to negotiate one aspect or the other of the credit. and then you can talk about the term in which you are supposed to repay that loan. You say, boss, this loan you said we pay it in 24 months, which is 2 years. That is too short a period. Can we extend the term so that we pay it in 48 months, which is 4 years? And then the creditor will say, 48 months is too much. Let's settle at 36 months, which is 3 years. And then you agree on that. And then you also talk about the issue of repayments. When do you commence repayments? You can tell your creditor to say, look, we are already overdue. We can't pay now, but we are reorganizing our economy. When it's reorganized in about 24 months, we'll then be in a position to start paying. So can you give us a little bit of a debt holiday so that we organize ourselves and then begin to repay? So you need to negotiate certain aspects of the loan to make it more favorable to you. That is what debt restructuring is all about. You understand? So now, you should ask these UPND guys, if you have an opportunity to talk to the Minister of Finance, ask him just a pointed question and ask him to say, so in that so-called debt restructuring of yours, which you claim to have accomplished, what terms did you negotiate favorably, and on which loans? Ask them that pointed question. They're going to struggle to answer it. You know why they'll struggle to answer it? It's because that so-called debt restructuring, they did not negotiate anything favorable in terms of the terms of that credit to the nation. The only thing they negotiated was the commencement of a repayment of the loan. But then even that repayment, for them to push it forward, they had to accrue interest on pushing forward. So in other words, by us restructuring our national debt, we are incurring a higher cost as a nation in terms of interest. So we are not benefiting. So that so-called debt restructuring is not beneficial to this country at all. You understand? It's a scam. That's why I say it's a scam. It's part of the UPND propaganda. On the other hand, what we are advocating for in our alternative national budgets is to say, look, we have too much debt and we want to cut it out, especially domestic debt. If you read our alternative national budgets, our emphasis is on cutting out domestic debt. And the reason we want to cut out domestic debt specifically is because it is detrimental to the overall growth of the economy. Why? Because when the government borrows domestically through instruments such as government bonds or treasury bills, using the Bank of Zambia as their agent, the people who invest on in those instruments are institutions like banks, insurance companies, pension funds, and so on and so forth. And when they invest in those instruments, in other words, when they lend to government, they are forfeiting lending to the private sector. And that is why credit is very expensive in Zambia compared to other neighboring countries. And you cannot develop a country if there is no access to reasonably priced credit. So that's basically our emphasis. We want to get rid of domestic debt so that the banks will not channel their money to government in terms of treasury bills, but they'll be lending to the private sector, so that when Mr. Sean Tembo walks into a bank, he wants a loan to expand his business, the bank will be able to give him a loan at a reasonable rate and with favorable terms, as opposed to what the scenario is at the moment. So the two are totally different things.
Okay, I want to go to there are people that are calling on different numbers, but then I would want to go to those that have sent the messages. But before maybe I get to the messages that are here, I want you to weigh in on something very important, and if you can try to make it so brief. Mr. Tembo, were part of the founders of the Tonse Alliance. And I recall not too long ago, Dr. Chris Zumani made indicators that you were the orchestrators or the engineers of the formation of the Tonse Alliance, in which President Edgar Chagwa Lungu, may his soul rest in peace, was the chairperson of Tonse. My question is, what has happened to you people? Have you failed to unite? And in your own words, Mr. Tembo, the nation would want to hear, what's wrong with you? They'll say, you were in Uka, you left. You were in Tonse, you are not there now. They don't see you there. And the nation would want to hear it from the horse's mouth and say, what went wrong in Tonse? Now, the Tonse Alliance is now with Honorable Brian Mundubile. And the Brian Mundubile seems he will be standing, or he will be the flag bearer. I'm not sure if that has been concluded. And would want to know, are you going back to support them, or are you standing on your own come the 13th of August? I think you would try to summarize your answer there. Then we read a few, people have been sending messages on the WhatsApp, and then we will be concluding. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, so I think it's just a matter of principle. I was not part of the formation of UKA, so I was just invited to UKA about 6 months after they formed. So I can't speak authoritatively about UKA and what went wrong in UKA. But exactly. With regard to Tonse, I was part of the architects of Tonse in terms of its formation. And one of the key people that we formed Tonse with was the late 60th Republican president, Mr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu. And when we formed Tonse, we agreed on certain aspects, okay, of how we are going to operate and how we are going to give hope to the Zambian people, how we are going to rebrand, how we are going to package ourselves sellable to the electorate. Remember that the PeP is a party which was just recently voted out of office, overwhelmingly. You understand? Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. 5 years ago, yes. So it's not a given that the moment you come back, people just vote you back into office. No. You need to repackage yourselves. So there was a strategy that we discussed with President Lungu in that regard. And when we looked at it, when I looked at it on paper, it was a perfect strategy. It would have worked perfectly. But unfortunately, we lost ECL. And when we lost ECL, there were several opportunists who came forward, wanted to hijack Tonse and do this and do that. I personally would not have had any challenge with anyone else coming forward wanting to run Tonse, provided they had the vision to run it properly so that it can achieve its objectives. I wouldn't have had a problem. For emphasis, I'm not one of those power-hungry people. I'm not. If something makes sense, I'll support it. But then the people who came forward didn't make sense. And I'm not going to blindly support people who are going to lead us in a ditch. If they want to fall in a ditch...
Are you telling me here that people like Brian Mundubile did not make sense to you? What are you trying to communicate? You are speaking in riddles, President Tembo. Can you be more plain to us? We want to know. Zambia does not have much time. We only have 150 days before we go to the elections.
Well, to cut a long story short, Doc, for us, we've made a conscious decision that we are going to stand on our own as PeP. And if anyone wants to back us, including individuals like Brian Mundubile, they are welcome to come and back us. we are going to welcome them. But that's a decision that we've made.
Okay. 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 Here is a question for you. Somebody is saying, this is Mr. Franklin from Choma. He has said, Mr. Tembo, you are so bitter towards the president and giving you just a day to run this country. Trust me, you can collapse over 5 times and possibly transfer yourself to meet your ancestors. Otherwise, trust me, it is not possible for you to lead the country with such bitterness. This is Franklin from Choma. I'm not sure if you need to respond to that. Then I've got another question here that is coming from, this one has no name. He has raised a couple of issues. He's saying, why opposition political parties are not fighting HH? Instead, you are fighting yourselves. Then he has also said, where is the problem of you opposition parties not working together as one to remove HH? Don't you think Zambians are losing hope with the current behavior amongst the opposition parties? Are you fighting for change of government or for the sake of making noise on social media? These are people that are sending messages on the WhatsApp. Maybe you need to respond to that.
Well, talking about bitterness towards President Hakainde Hichilema, for me, I've never been bitter towards Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, both when he was in opposition to when he is actually president. I just disagree with his policies and his way of doing things. As a person, I actually admire him. I think he did quite well when he was an opposition leader. He managed to persevere and managed to overcome the challenges that were thrown his way, and eventually managed to become president of the country. That's not an easy undertaking. And when someone is strong and good at what they're able to do and they're able to succeed, you've got no option but to admire their strength and their prowess. So in that regard, I do admire President Hakainde Hichilema. But that does not mean that I need to agree with what he does and how he does it, his policies and so on and so forth. Prioritizing his personal pockets over the masses, I don't have to agree with that. So my disagreement with President Hakainde Hichilema is based on principle and not personal issues. As an individual, I don't have any issues with him. Coming to
the issues of unity among yourselves, that's the next question from a different person here. He's talking about the question of unity among the opposition and fighting yourselves within the opposition. Yeah.
You know, the challenge with most of these political commentators is that they've got a theoretical perspective of how politics actually functions. You know, so they'll take their theory and try to chant it in public, like that gentleman who asked that question. You know, political parties, there are several political parties in this country who are registered separately by the Registrar of Societies because we've got different beliefs. Okay? A matter of common sense, really, if you ask me. We've got different beliefs. That's why each one of these political parties looked around and said, none of these ones which are there have the same beliefs as me. Let me go to the Registrar of Societies and register a political party and call it so and so and so. And then all of a sudden, you are expecting people to forfeit their beliefs and just get together with people who are advancing beliefs they don't believe in. And then you blame them for not abandoning their personal beliefs. So my message to those political commentators is that they've got a theoretical perspective of how politics operates anywhere in the world, not just in Zambia. Anyway, go to Europe. Go to Europe, you'll find that they've got coalitions that form government. You never find one political party in Europe forming government outrightly. They need to form coalitions with other parties, other parties, other parties. There will be 20, 30 parties. You understand? The same thing with here. Okay? Here in Zambia, there are different political parties. The key thing is let the people have the choice to say, Palema political party on sire, I think in Zapotera Ijayawa Shon Tembo, or on Zapotera Ijayawa Munduvire, or on Zapotera Ijayawa Ruvinda, or Oyawa Maosam. Let people have a choice instead of, trying to stand on an undeserved higher moral pedestal and condemn people. Why are you not uniting? We are not uniting because we are not the same people. That's why we are not uniting. It's a matter of common sense, if you ask me.
All right. All right. I'll just read two comments that have come here. Then we should be on top of the hour and we will be closing our broadcast for tonight. Somebody here is asking me, say, Doc, ask Mr. Tembo. Mr. Tembo, on Hot FM once, on Hot FM, he said, Mr. Tembo on Hot FM once said, the only person that he sees that can run Tonse effectively is Brian Mundubile. What has changed now? Then the other question here is saying, Honorable Tembo, we don't see you in our compounds and we don't know where your offices are. Do you have branches in the wards, constituencies across the nation, or it's a one-man show on social media? So those are the two questions that have come. Somebody is saying, you once said on Hot FM, I did not listen to that one myself, but somebody said, you once said on Hot FM that Brian Mundubile is the only qualified person who could lead Tonse. What has changed now? Then somebody here is saying, they don't see you in the compounds, they don't see you anywhere. Is your political party just a one-man show? And is it only on social media or on platform? Where are your branches? Where are your chairmen? Where are your constituency and districts and provincial structures? In other words, those are the questions that we will wrap up our conversations with.
Well, I'll start with the last question, which to me, of course, sounds like a silly question because first of all, the person who is asking to say they don't see us in the compounds. I'm just from a compound this morning. I was attending church service in County Square Stage 1. I'm always out there meeting our people. And they're saying, where are our structures? What do they expect? Yeah. They want us to pack our structures in a package and send it by DHL to their location or what? So to me, that's what I'm saying. That sounds like a silly question. But anyway, I'll move to the other question. Brian Mundubile is a friend of mine. And at some point when ACL died, I was asked when I featured on a radio program on Hot FM to say, because at that time there was that conflict. There was Governor Ruvinda who was claiming he's acting Tonse Alliance president, Tonse Alliance chairman rather. And there's no such position. There was no such position in the Tonse Alliance as acting, chairman. And I was asked by Peter Zulu to say, if you have to elect an interim, chairman of the Tonse Alliance in the interim before you go to a convention who would you support? Okay, that's a question. So those are things you are putting to say. I said Brian Munduwire would better run Tonse and whatever. Those, I never said such things. They don't exist. So I said, well, given the people who are there, actually, I didn't just narrow down on Brian Munduwire. I gave two people. I said, to me, the people who I would support as interim, potential interim chairpersons of Tonse before we go to a convention is either Brian Munduwire or KBF, Kelvin Wariafue. So that was my answer. And under the circumstances that prevailed at that particular time, I believe I still stand by that particular opinion for the simple reason that we needed someone to take care of Tonse Alliance on an interim basis and then take us to the convention. And then the convention, the people would be allowed to vote. You understand? But one of the things, if you ask me, because I think that's what you are trying to ask me, but you are failing to ask me directly to say, why don't you support Brian Munduwire?
No. President Tembo.
Let me just finish.
Just on there. Somebody, because I want you to capture it, because that's where you are going. Somebody has just written the last, I think it was the last. Listen to this. He says, good evening, Doc, and good evening, Mr. Tembo. Background as things stand, to be honest with you, Munduwire, Apangika, why can't you people team up with Munduwire? Wherever you go in Zambia, you will just hear BM8. If truly you love Zambians and you love your country, work with Munduwire, Tuapapata, GK. Now, it's not my thoughts. I mean, I'm just reading the stories for the people. So maybe you can respond to, so you can capture what you are trying to bring together with this comment. Yeah.
I don't even know where to start from.
Start from anywhere. Start from anywhere.
Yeah. So you know, one thing I can tell you, Doc, you can't fake political popularity. Okay? You can't fake genuine political popularity. You can't fake it.
Okay.
So if you want to know you are popular politically, just take a walk, not with an entourage of people who are flashing pictures of your face and your name to identify you. No, just walk. Go into PeP or go into ShopRite with one person. You are just wearing a suit. You are doing your own shopping, and then see how many people stop you and say, President Mulibwanji, tukopeka selfie na president, tishtako chani na president, tishtako chani na president. Let's observe that. Okay, that is genuine political support. And then you've got the rest of the other types of support, whereby, there is youth there. And then how many, you bring maybe 2,000 youths, all of them are wearing T-shirts with your face and flashing your placards. We can all see that those T-shirts you have to give to them.
Yes, so, of course.
So that's not natural, organic. That is not natural, organic support. You needed to give them those T-shirts. You need to print and give them those placards, and then obviously they are not doing it free of charge. You probably have to give them something for them to go home. So the following day you splash a headline and say, "Massive youth turn up on Youth Day to support candidate ABCD." That is a fallacy. Okay, that is a fallacy. But if you go to town center there, you are trying to buy some hardware, and people come up and they mob you. Our president, our president, our president, and there's a traffic jam. Those are not people that is not choreographed support. So I'll tell you something, before you come in, let me just conclude. Before you come in, I'll tell you something. For me, I've got natural organic support from the people.
Okay.
And for other people, they have choreographed and hired support. So what you should be working on, if you want opposition unity, tell the others to come and join Sean Tembo. Then we are going to have a united opposition, and then we can beat HH in August.
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight I've enjoyed myself chatting with President Sean Tembo, who is concluding by calling out everybody else. He's not mentioning names, but I can mention on his behalf. Maybe he's calling KBF, calling Brian Mundubide, calling Given Rubinda, calling Dan Pule, calling Chifumo Banda, calling Harikalava. Sean Tembo aletira tiseni kolonga neni na ine nkamya fokuina. President Sean Tembo.
Yes.
President Sean Tembo, your last words to the nation. You have remained only with 150 days before we get to the ballot. The Zambian people. Just on that, I'll give you time to conclude. The Zambian people have only these two options: either to renew the contract of President Hakainde Hichilema on the 13th August, or to expire the contract. If we have to expire the contract, in whom do we have the confidence as the Zambians to say, "New wala tuale chalo chesu pantaish"? President Tembo, over to you, sir.
Well, thank you, Doc, for that. You know, from my standpoint, I've got no doubt that President Hakainde Hichilema will be removed from office this August. I've got no doubt. Yes.
Are you sure?
Are you
sure? Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Why I say that is because of a number of factors. You know, the time and age in which we live is an information age. And what that means is that information is on the fingertips of the electorate. And you cannot deceive the electorate. The electorate know who is a genuine opposition leader and who is a surrogate of the UPND. They know that. They can tell. They can read between the lines. You know, it's not like the way politics was done in the 90s or the 80s, where the people used to rely on newspapers for information. And then those newspapers could be manipulated to feed false information to the public. No. In this day and age, people have got direct access to raw information which they can process by themselves and make their own judgments. Okay. So the fact that we are likely to have a very long list of presidential candidates in August. In fact, my estimate is that we are likely to have not less than 20 candidates on the presidential ballot paper. We will not prevent the Zambian people from actually removing President Hakainde Hichilema from office for two reasons. Number one, because the majority of the people, and when I say majority, in my assessment, I think more than 70% of the people, the electorate, want President Hakainde Hichilema out of office because of his misbehavior and his total failure to perform. And then number two, it is because we have a clause in our constitution that the winning presidential candidate must score 50% plus one vote. Okay? So there is no way in heaven or hell that President Hakainde Hichilema will go anywhere close to 50% in August. No way whatsoever. No way. Okay? If he touches 30%, then he should consider it a very splendid performance. People come and say, no, what if they rig and what? You know, rigging an election is more of a tale than reality on a big scale. You can rig an election on a small scale, maybe 100,000 votes, maybe 150,000 votes, maybe maximum 200,000 votes, but you cannot rig an election to turn around the verdict when the people give it to you. to turn around 500,000, a million votes. You can't. You just can't. Logistically, you cannot. Okay. And then, so I'm very confident that we are likely to go to a rerun because there is no clear presidential, preferred presidential candidate in the opposition. So there's going to be a split vote across the board. But HH will not get the 50% plus one, far from it. So we'll go into a rerun, and HH is likely to be one of the people in the rerun, and then one of the other opposition leaders, most likely myself. So when we go into that rerun, of course, the UPND will do what the UPND do best. They will round up the other opposition leaders who featured on the ballot and buy them off and make them endorse President Hakainde Hichilema for the second round. Okay. And they'll succeed because there's too much hunger across this country. So people don't really, a lot of people don't have values or principles. So they will succeed at that. But it will not help them to win the election because in as much as they will buy the leaders of these political parties that stood in the first round of elections and make them endorse HH in the second round, the electorate will not move with their leaders. Because someone who voted against HH in the first round will not simply turn around and vote for HH in the second round simply because their president, who is now showing a brand new suit and a new car, is now endorsing HH. They will not do that. So the UPND will be able to buy the leaders, but they will not be able to buy the electorate. The electorate who wanted HH out and voted against HH will still vote against HH in the second round. And then he will be out of office. As simple as all that.
Well, Zambia tonight, there you have it. I have been hosting President Sean Tembo. Under 30 minutes, your last word to Zambia. If there is something that you would wish the Zambian people to hear out of your mouth, Leroni Pasande, today on this 15th of March, 2026, 150 days before we go to the ballot, what is that your last message to the nation, President Sean Tembo?
Well, you said I've got 30 minutes. I guess you said he wanted to say I've got 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Or let's give you 1 minute. 1 minute.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So my message to the Zambian people is quite simple and straightforward. You know, they might look like there's confusion now, and some citizens might want to lose hope and say, "What are we going to do?" ABCD. But be rest assured that we are going to change government this August, and you need to make the right decision. You need to look at the people you've shortlisted and who they are. What have they done? What have they stood for? What can they do for this country? Because it's not just changing government for the sake of changing government. We need to remove this bad UPND government and put in a better government. Okay? Let's not make the mistake that we made in 2021, where we removed the bad PF government and put in a worse UPND government. In other words, we jumped from the frying pan onto the fire itself. It shouldn't be like that this year. And that is why it's important to scrutinize the people that are standing. Who is Sean Tembo? Anabadwira kuti, anakulira kuti, enzo chitachani. What has he done in his life? Okay? What are his beliefs? How can he help the people? What ideas does he have? Then you realize that the only way we can usher in a new and better government after August is to make sure that you vote for a candidate who means well for this country, a candidate who is competent, a candidate who is principled, a candidate who has values, and that candidate is no other than Tembo. So if I was an average voter, the choice wouldn't be very difficult. It wouldn't be very difficult. It's quite clear. You understand? Because we must not forget, again, Doc, that the PF, when they were in power, they did certain things right, but they did a number of other things wrongly. They did things right, such as infrastructure and so on and so forth. The roads and universities and hospitals and airports that they built, we can all see them up to now. We can't take that away from them. You agree with me? However, when we talk about governance, hijacking state institutions, abusing state institutions, lawlessness, cadreism, is something that they failed completely. Okay, so what they did right, we need to acknowledge they did this right. What they failed, we need to acknowledge they failed here. And governance-wise, they failed completely. Okay, so people who were very close to the previous government cannot then turn around and claim that they are going to provide good governance to this country. That's a lie. That's a fallacy. Because they were part and parcel of the government that abused citizens, that hijacked state institutions, and so on and so forth. In fact, most of the misbehavior that we see today under UPND, they borrowed it from the PF handbook. This misbehavior, you change my office bearers, registrar of companies, and so on and so forth. That's what the PF did. That's what the PF did to NDC, to Kambwiri NDC. Okay, you understand? So it's not something new. The UPND are merely borrowing that same bad behavior. Okay, so when we talk about changing governments, and we need to not only just change for the sake of changing, but we need to change so that we put in a better government. And Tembo represents a better government. Anyone who is an offshoot of a patriotic front is unqualified to promise good governance and a better government. That's my submission.
Wow. Zambia, there you have it tonight. We have been chatting with President of Patriots for Economic Progress. This is no other than President Sean Enoch Tembo. He has spent some time to explain what he desires to see over the nation. He has also spoken about what the government of the Republic of Zambia under President Hakainde Hichilema looks according to him. He has also echoed a number of issues pertaining to the alliance, and he has also, in his concluding remarks, called upon the opposition leaders to round themselves around him and see to it that they give a run to the current incumbent. And not only that, he has also predicted to say there might be a runoff that may take place after the 2026 13th of August elections. He is predicting that President HH will not make 50+1. I am not sure, because the ballot is coming and the vote is in your hands as Zambia decides. Mwene kwa sukonsi kwa mkumvwa ni Neo Emmanuel Nkoma, and I want to say to you, mwena Zambia, twa totela, twa santa mwane, twa lumbagapati, this evening for joining us so that we can have this conversation. On this program, we want to bring all those that aspire to lead this country into your home, into your hospital room, into your gadget. Please feel free to phone in. Thank you for all those that gave us a call. Your messages, there are a couple of messages that have been coming in. Those of you that we are not able to read them and not able to answer, we close the line early because it's Sunday. Tomorrow, let's make Zambia work. One more time, this has been your friend and brother, Emmanuel Nkoma. Tikutitapita, Salani, Tiona Nanso, Pachtat. Good night.